The Chuckle Brothers and the Haunted House. It was a dark and stormy night. The Chuckle Brothers, Barry and Paul, had been asked by their Uncle Henry to look after his mansion while he was on holiday. They could hardly believe their eyes. They'd never been in Uncle Henry's mansion before. "This is magnificent," said Paul. Barry and Paul went into one of the bedrooms. Paul, in particular, was intrigued by his surroundings. "Sir Walter Raleigh stayed here once," he said. "This must have been his bedroom." Paul left Barry to look around the bedroom. It wasn't long before Barry heard a strange, eerie, howling wind, followed by the unearthly creaking of an ancient door. Barry felt very scared, but decided to be brave and confront whatever it was that was making the noise. "Oh dear," worried Barry. It was Paul. "Come on, Barry," he called as he left. A suspicious Barry followed and closed the door behind him. Barry met Paul in the mansion's foyer. "I'm not so sure about this place, Paul," he said. "I think it might be haunted." "Haunted?" asked Paul. "Nonsense. If this place is haunted, then my name's Paul Daniels." "Anyway," Paul continued, "I'm hungry for some eggs and bacon." Paul sat down at the dining table while Barry went to the kitchen. They didn't notice that the suit of armour in the foyer was watching their every move. Could Uncle Henry's mansion be haunted after all? Barry returned with some bad news. "No eggs," said Barry. Oh dear," replied Paul. The storm wasn't helping matters much either. "I shall have to go to the shop and get some more," Barry sighed. Barry went to leave, but Paul was quick to stop him just before he went out the door. "You're not going out on an evil night like this, dressed up like that," said Paul. "Put on your raincoat." So Barry did. When Barry had gone, Paul had a think of what to do. "Oh, I'm glad I'm wrapped up warm in here," he thought. Then something caught his eye. "Hey, what a lovely chair," said Paul. "I think I might sit on it." But can you guess what happened when Paul sat down? Something sharp and pointy on the cushion poked him, and he came straight back up again. Either Barry had played a trick on Paul before he'd gone to the shop, or something spooky was going on. Sometime later, Paul was reading one of Uncle Henry's favourite books, Ghosts in Fact and Fiction. The atmosphere in the mansion was getting scary, and Paul wasn't a Chuckle who got scared easily. For all he knew, the next sound he'd hear would scare him half to death. And it almost did. But it was only Barry, back from the shop and ringing the doorbell. "Silly me," said Paul. He went to let Barry in. "You took your time," Paul angrily said. "Come in." While Barry went to put the eggs away, Paul decided to give the suit of armour a good clean. He thought Uncle Henry would appreciate it being clean when he got back from holiday. But Paul was sure that the suit of armour had moved. Paul then sat down back at the dining table. Barry was already there, cleaning the cutlery. "Dinner ready yet?" asked Paul. "Nearly," replied Barry. "I just need to put the kettle on for a nice hot cup of tea." "Oh, you're not sat on that chair, are you?" "Of course I am. Why?" said Paul. "Because that's where I put the eggs," said Barry. Paul stood up. His trousers were covered from top to bottom in eggshells and yolks. "Well, that was stupid," Paul huffed. "I'll have to change my trousers now." As Paul went to change, Barry had an idea. "I know," he said. I'll make scrambled eggs. First I'll need a frying pan. Now where can I find one of those? Barry went off to have a look. In the foyer, Barry had a think as to where he could find a frying pan. He wasn't aware that the suit of armour was waiting for him to sit down on the chair and prick his bottom on the cushion. Barry eventually found a rather unusual looking frying pan on the wall. The suit of armour gave up and threw his mace onto the floor in frustration. Paul came back with a nice new pair of white trousers, but his good mood was soon spoiled. You've broken the suit of armour, he said, despite Barry's protests. And you've scratched the chair too. Fix them up, and then you can make my dinner. So while Paul went back to the dining room to read his book, Barry began to work on the chair. He saw a pot of varnish on the wooden windowsill, picked it up and began repairing the chair. That's better, he thought to himself. It'll be a perfect match when it's dried out. Barry then went off to finish Paul's dinner. At the same time, Paul came into the foyer and spotted the repaired chair. I'm glad that chair's mended, he said. Just think, on a chair like this I could be King Paul the First. Paul sat down on the chair and felt something sticky beneath him. He stood back up, ripping a hole in his trousers. Oh dear, sighed Paul. I think I need something to eat. And a new pair of trousers. As Barry and Paul tucked into their scrambled eggs and cardboard, Barry was becoming more and more scared. I've got a funny feeling about this place, he said. Have you ever had the feeling you're not alone? Oh, you don't need to be frightened, Barry, replied Paul. There's no such thing as ghosts. Although, I do remember a night in Scotland, up on Loch Ness. I was asleep in bed. It was a night just like this, with a wind just like this howling outside. Barry quivered, his fork and plate clattering together in fear. Suddenly, I felt a hand on my chest, continued Paul. It crept upwards and grabbed me by the throat. Then it got me by the chin. I did the only thing I could think of. I bit hard. And what happened? Asked Barry. This, said Paul, holding up his hand. One of his fingers was missing. I don't think I'm hungry anymore, said Barry. I'm off to bed. As the night went on and the rain continued to fall, Paul decided that, rather than light a fire, he would go to bed as well. But he hadn't drifted off for very long when he heard a noise at the door. The door then creaked open by itself. Oh no! I think Barry was right, said Paul, frightened. This place is haunted! It was Barry. He explained that he was still frightened and wanted to sleep somewhere where it was safe. Oh, I suppose so, said Paul reluctantly. But don't frighten me like that again. And don't make any noise either. However, when the Chuckle Brothers went back to sleep, it wasn't Barry making noise. Chains rattled. Somebody laughed and screamed, and a bell tolled. Barry and Paul got more and more scared with each noise. I think there's something outside our room, said Paul as bravely as he could. Let's go and sort him out. Barry and Paul lit a lamp and went to find the source of the mysterious noises. Barry, you go on to the landing and have a look there, said Paul. I'll go back and have a look round the corner to see if we've missed anything. Paul didn't want to admit that he was going back to the bedroom for safety. Out on the landing, Barry thought he heard a noise behind a wall. He opened the secret door built into the wall and stumbled right into a ghost? But when Barry thought he'd fought the ghost off, he found that it was just an old bedsheet. Silly me, said Barry. Then something else caught Barry's eye. What are all these old-fashioned clothes doing behind this wall? He asked, to nobody in particular. They're a bit dusty, but I think I might try some on. Sometime later, Paul decided that there was nothing to worry about, so he would go looking for Barry. He didn't expect to see a medieval figure covered in dust. Ghost! Screamed Paul, who didn't know that it was just Barry. I only wanted to show you my new clothes, said Barry. But it was all too much for poor Paul. He ran, screaming, down the stairs and straight out of the door. Barry and the suit of armour followed him, out into the rainy evening. Later, the Chuckle Brothers found they could laugh about their spooky goings-on. But between you and me, although Barry and Paul would like to stay at Uncle Henry's mansion again, I don't think they ever will. Do you?